Hello and welcome to this special edition for the French municipal elections here on France 24. Well, this was not merely a local election, but clearly a national one. And while the results are still coming in, four things are clear. The French abstain in record numbers. The ruling socialists appear to be the losers. The opposition conservative are the likely winners. But the real winner appears to be the far-right National Front, with a surprise first-round victory in the town of Hénin-Beaumont. We will be going to Hénin-Beaumont, but also to France's two largest cities, Paris and Marseille, two closely watched races. We'll also be discussing with the results as they come in with our guests. The first one is Corinne Narassiguin, who is a national secretary for the Socialist Party. Hello and welcome. Also on the set, Benjamin Haddad, who is a national secretary for the opposition Conservative Party, the UMP. Hello and welcome. Also with us, Philip Turl from Radio France Internationale. And the last guest tonight, Elie Hatem, who is a candidate for the National Front in Paris. Welcome
Thank you, and good
to you
evening.
too. So people were watching, first of all, to see if the French would stay home or head to the polls, where many of them decided to stay home. The abstention, we don't have the official figure yet, but we know it will be a record abstention over a third, maybe up to 35, maybe 38% abstention rate, which is big and says a lot about the mood here in France. And we'll also be watching some of the races that are still coming in. The polls closed in Paris and Marseille quite late at 8 p.m. and we don't have final results yet. But we know one thing: the National Front, which had deemed those elections fundamental, quote unquote, in the words of the leader Marine Le Pen, the Front is smiling tonight. Let's take a listen to a triumphant Marine Le Pen.
Je crois surtout que c'est la fin de la bipolarisation de la vie politique.
This is the end of the two-party nature of French politics. The Front National is here, an independent political force, a strong political presence, and no longer just on a national level, we also have this local presence. And this is one of the main revelations tonight.
L'arrivée en tête dans des villes
By coming at the top of the list in large, important towns such as Avignon or Perpignan with over 120,000 people, this shows that the Front National has arrived in the mainstream in a pretty exceptional
voulaient le
way.
faire et il s'implante avec un cru assez exceptionnel ce soir.
So, very happy, Marine Le Pen. I imagine you must be happy as well with this victory in the first round in Hénin-Beaumont and strong performances in several towns, especially in the south of France, probably not as strong as in Paris. Is this a great day for the National Front?
I think I am not only happy, I think that French people are very happy now to have to look at these changes. And as Marine said, and this new, it is the end of the bipolarization of the French politics. And I think that French are fed up from the more other than 3 decades of the right, the traditional right and left parties, which is described by Marine Le Pen as the UMPS. That means the UMP plus the Socialist Party, which are very similar in their programs. I think that tonight and today that French are they would like to see some changes in the politics, and they mean that these are local elections, and they mean that also that French need new figures to take over their day-to-day politics.
Right. Before I let the other parties react, Flip Turl, a quick analysis on the National Front score. There were polls showing that the National Front would do well, but it seems not everywhere, of course, but in certain key towns, they did really well.
Well, it's been sort of a foregone conclusion that in these elections, the National Front would do well. What was unclear was what the abstention rate was going to be. As you were saying, it was high this time round. It's the highest, 38% of any municipal election since the beginning of the Fifth Republic in France in 1958, the first one after that being in 1959. We've seen a gradual increase in the abstention rate over the last few years, not only in municipal elections, but in all the other elections. The legislative elections, people stay away from the polls more. They also stayed away from the polls in the last presidential election in France, more in 2012 than they did in 2007 when Nicolas Sarkozy was elected. So it's true that when there is a high abstention rate, this tends to favorise or give the National Front a greater score, because National Front voters are much more mobilised than traditional voters for both the left and the right. So it's known in France that when the abstention rate goes up, the percentage of people voting in favour of the National Front will also go up. So I think that explains in part the National Front score. There is another reason, is the dissatisfaction with the traditional parties. The President of France, François Hollande, is very low in the opinion polls at the moment. There's a feeling that the Socialist Party running the country has got it wrong, isn't bringing down the unemployment rate, isn't bringing back economic growth to France. And on the other side, the UMP, the traditional right-wing opposition, has been dogged with a lot of political scandals, financial scandals, affecting not only Nicolas Sarkozy, but the leader of the party, Jean-François Copé. And I think there's a feeling in France that people don't really have confidence in the UMP to take over from the socialists at the next election. So the third choice will be the National Front.
Okay, before we get to react, we need to head to the Hôtel de Ville, the city hall here in Paris. Closely watched race between two women. The results are still very partial, uncertain. We'll have to wait for next Sunday, the second round. Tom Burgess watched and has more for us. Tom.
Yes, Mark, I'm here in Hôtel de Ville, keeping a very close eye on all the developments as the results trickle in. We've got results from all the 20 arrondissements across Paris, and it's clear that in the most populous regions of the French capital, they're the ones that matter the most, because they'll generate the largest number of councillors who will then in turn vote who the next mayor will be. Looking extremely close, some early estimates suggesting that Kosciusko Morizet for the UMP has a slight lead. That, of course, would mean if, well, of course, a great deal could change between now and next week when the second round comes around. But if this is true, we heard her saying that this could mean that at last, after 13 years, there could be a change in the leadership here in Paris City Hall. Who is the mayor of this, the largest city in France and one of the great global capitals, will be of great interest, not just in France, but beyond as well. But looking extremely close, a participation rate of around 56.5% here in the French capital. That's down very slightly on the number of people who took part in elections back in 2008, but certainly a very close result. All remains to be seen. There'll be lots of horse trading, no doubt, in the second round. And one thing worth noting, Mark, is that the Green Party, with all of this discussion of pollution in the last couple of weeks here in Paris, appear to have fared pretty well. So they've been a surprise victor from what was a pretty gloomy picture here in the French capital when you couldn't even see the Eiffel Tower from a couple of hundred meters away.
Tom Burgess Watson, thank you, and you'll probably keep watching this for a long, long night here in Paris. Benjamin Haddad, I want your reaction. Your party leader, Jean-François Copé, expressed satisfaction at the results. He also called for the National Front voters to vote for your party. Are you happy because you had announced that this would be a major triumph for the UMP? It seems a victory, but not an outright one.
Well, the first lesson I think that we should learn from tonight is that the French electorate has sent a very strong message of rejection to the current government, to the socialist government, to its failure in policies to reverse unemployment, to fight against insecurity, and this has shown in all the results tonight. The second message is that they have called for a credible political alternative. The only credible political alternative today is UMP, and it's shown in the results tonight. So what we call now is to confirm, to continue this trend for the second round, and especially with a special call to the voters of the National Front to tell them that they should not be mistaken. Voting for the National Front, especially in the second round, will mean helping the left keep towns where the electorates want an alternative, want a change. So this is the message we're sending very strongly tonight. As Jean-François Copé has said, actually, and he was, by the way, re-elected with a very high score in Meaux, this is a yellow card for the government. Now it's, our responsibility to send a red card in the second round.
But isn't this also a green light for the National Front? Are they presenting themselves as a possible alternative to the left, and that you're not the only one as an alternative anymore?
I think the score of the National Front shows that there is today a strong frustration, a strong anger from the French electorate. And we have to hear that. We have to listen to that. But once again, make no mistake, the National Front is in no capacity, has no intellectual credibility today to govern cities, and even less the country. So I think it's a vote of rejection, and we should call very strongly for the electors to make no mistake in the second round.
Before you get to react, I know you want to react, Corinne Nagas-Séguin. Red card for the Socialist Party. People are not going to vote, and people who vote generally sanction the Socialist Party.
Well, I think it's not very surprising that the party who is in power at the national level usually gets sanctioned at the first round of local elections. It's pretty typical, really, and it was expected. But I think the main lesson here is the abstention level, which is very high, and the results of the National Front show that there's definitely an act of defiance from the voters that was expressed today.
Are you surprised by this level of discontent? Did you expect it that much?
I think it's been clear for a while that French people are very worried about the state of the economy because it's taking a while to recover, despite the efforts of the government. And so we did expect a difficult election. But yes, the fact that the National Front is doing so well on the first round shows not only that there's a dissatisfaction with the left, but also with the traditional right, which hasn't been up to the challenge of offering a true alternative. And that's worrying for all parties, for the entire political class, I think.
Right.
We now have to think about the second round now more as local elections, because there are consequences. It's voting for your mayor for 6 years for the local team in place. We've seen in the past when the National Front took cities, it's not the first time. It always ended in disaster. So we have to remind people of that.
Okay, I believe we have on the phone one of the leaders of the National Front, Bruno Gollnisch. Mr. Gollnisch, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're just mentioning the fact that it's not the first time the National Front performs well in mayoral elections, and last time around in the 1990s, it did not end up well. Do you think this time it's different, and if so, why?
Yes, I think it's quite different because it's not only in 3 or 4 cities, but it is really a national wave. And, you know, well, the result of the few mayors who were elected Front National were not as disastrous as they say, because the cities were very much indebted, and we succeeded in solving this problem. But anyway, what is true that we had all powers against us. I mean, political, administrative, economical, and so on. And now it cannot be the case anymore. Well, I was listening to what the representative of the UMP said, and he said, "Well, we have no intellectual ability to." To manage the cities. I don't know if I have intellectual ability, and I've been the dean of the Faculty of Foreign Languages and professor of Japanese civilization, and I have a law doctorate, and I've been a member of parliament for the past 25 years. I think I have at least as many intellectual abilities as the members of the Conservative Party who did not succeed in conserving, if I may say so, anything. It will be maybe surprising for you, but in a way, I agree with the person who spoke for Socialist Party, who said that there is a dissatisfaction in France towards the left, but also towards the UMP, the Conservative.
Mr. Mr. Golnisch, let me just ask you a question. Is it the result of the transformation of the party by Marine Le Pen, who tried to distance, in a way, herself from her father's party? Do you think this is the first result?
I think it's partly because of the action of Marine Le Pen, but her father went through very, very difficult situations, and he succeeded, and she now she's running the party with many abilities, that's for sure. But I think it is mainly the result of the fact that the French people came to realize that we not only did we put forward the true problems, but also we have the solution. We propose the solutions to these problems, and we have the people, men and women, able to bring these solutions in operation. I think it's a real change in public opinion in France.
Okay, thank you very much, Bruno Gollnisch. We'll go to the one place where this change actually took place, something that the pollster did not see coming. By that, I mean the first round election of the Secretary General of the National Front, Steve Briouat, in the small northern town of Hénin-Beaumont. Pollsters thought he would win, but in the second round, however, he pulled it off in the first round. Cyril Vanier is our special envoy to Hénin-Beaumont. Cyril, this is quite an upset.
It is an upset, and the National Front did believe, they had, of course, been reading the latest polls, and they did believe that they would score very highly in the first round of the election. But in the end, they came in just a few votes above the absolute majority, 50.2%. That means 20 or 30 votes above the 50% line, and it is a historic number, a historic result for the National Front and for the candidate Steve Briouat. It was the fifth time that he had run for mayor in this town. He's been campaigning here relentlessly for almost 20 years. In every election that Hénin-Beaumont has held over the last 20 years, he has a lot of recognition for that. He has a very strong ground operation. They have teams in place that are always there, going to see at every possible opportunity the residents of Hénin-Beaumont inquiring about their day-to-day problems. And Steve Briouat's campaign, in fact, was focused very much on local issues, not so much on the national agenda of the National Front. And that really seems to have been the recipe for success for him. You have to bear in mind also that there's a very specific local political context that's also favorable to the National Front. I mean, the left here is divided. They fielded 3 candidates. They're weakened by an ongoing corruption scandal. In fact, one of the previous mayors, who also ran in this election, has been found guilty of corruption and fraud. So, of course, it's not a strong left that was running against the National Front. Nonetheless, this is a historic result for the far-right party.
Cyril, it's also interesting because this region, the north of France, is a traditionally leftist region. The National Front has performed well generally in southern France, especially in the southeast of France. But there it's also maybe a victory of a local candidate who's been there for a long time, but also for the new economic platform of Marine Le Pen, which is much more leftist than her father's used to be.
Well, that's entirely right, and that's why the result here at Hénin-Beaumont was so important for the National Front. It was a testing ground for them to see whether their national strategy was beginning to work, and they are gaining momentum on the back of this essentially rebranding of the party that Marine Le Pen has been engineering ever since she became the leader of the National Front. She has tried to distance the party from the traditional anti-immigration platform and to orient it towards the social and economic issues. And in times of economic hardship and high unemployment, which is true nationally, which is also true locally, 18% unemployment here, in those kinds of contexts, the National Front thrives. And I think you're quite right to point out that this is a victory not just for the local candidate, but for the national strategy. And it's symbolic, as you say, because the National Front was able to take a town which consistently has voted to the left for the last 60 years. years, for over half a century, the voters of Hénin-Beaumont have always been electing a left-wing mayor, be it from the Communist Party or the Socialist Party. So this signals not just the efficient groundwork of one man and one campaign. This does signal that the party generally is beginning to attract new voter demographics, the working class. I mean, this is a town of sons and grandsons of miners. This is a mining town. And these people who traditionally voted for the Communist Party, they're now voting National Front. And they were open about it with us. They said, the people that we used to vote for, we don't see them here anymore, and they don't address our day-to-day problems, whereas the National Front takes them into consideration. And that's why we wanted to give them a chance.
Cyril Vanier, thank you very much. Corinne Narassiguin, a very severe indictment of the leftist party, or do you think this is just because of a very peculiar local situation?
I think Hénin-Beaumont is a very specific situation.
It's an accident,
Well, it's maybe it's been coming for a little while, but so it's not a complete accident. But I don't think we can draw national conclusions from it. Because it's such a specific set of circumstances. But it's true that there are questions around the weakness also of the far left historically over the past few years that has strengthened the National Front in light of a difficult economic situation.
Right.
So that's definitely there.
Right. I mean, the National Front has also performed well tonight in several southern towns like Béziers, for instance, Perpignan, Fréjus, also in the eastern town of Forbach, where the number 2 of the party, Florian Philippot, was running, the companion of Marine Le Pen, we just see now, Louis Alliot, who is ahead in Perpignan, Gilbert Collard in Saint-Gilles, who is one of the 2 MPs is ahead with 42.5%. Benjamin Haddad, we've seen from Bruno Gollnisch going after you in a way that the National Front clearly is hoping to eat up your votes and maybe eat up your party eventually, and that this is questioning what strategy to adopt with that party.
I don't think so. Well, first, if you look at the results tonight, I think the clear loser is the Socialist Party and the party that is supporting the government. Now, it's true that in some of the towns where it's represented, because we have to point to the fact that the Front National is not represented in many towns. But in some of the towns where it's represented, it gathered good scores. But once again, I disagree with Mr. Gollnisch. I don't think today the National Front offers a credible, programmatic alternative to UMP. You were talking about socio-economic issues, but on socio-economic issues, it's a program that is very close to the far left, that is very close to Mr. Mélenchon's, going back to national borders, protecting our economy, being totally disconnected from globalization in Europe, on European issues, on immigration. It's a total caricature. And that is
But people like it.
I think today it's mostly a vote of rejection.
Right.
I think
vote of rejection. So
Yes. So this is what I would like to point out. This is what Mr. Haddad is trying to do, is just to impose to French people what they have to vote and what they have not to vote. Today there is a result.
imposing?
So
We're
French
debating.
people, I think that French people today, they decided and they checked that the most next to their will and to what they wish to have is the programs offered by the Front National. This is the first point. And when you say that we don't have enough people who are well qualified, which is totally right. And I think it's a question of a trust. And I think that people today, they do not trust anymore the traditional parties, the UMP and the Parti Socialiste.
So you think they vote for the National Front rather than against the other parties? You think there's
I think also, because I would like just to add one thing. When you said that this is maybe it's a changing of a strategy of the Front National, which is totally wrong, because I think in 2002 Mr. Jean-Marie Le Pen was going to the second round of the election. The second thing is, what we have to know, that we had no municipal elections since the 90s, for example, 90s in Paris. And now I think we're going to have a new result in Paris, which is over 8%. This is what I received by SMS on my phone. the last point I would like to add to what Mr. Haddad and what you have said and what Mr. Bruno Gollnisch said, I think also that the society is changing and the politicians, they have to readopt their speeches according to the evolution of the society. And this is what Marine Le Pen did. And there is an evolution in the speech of the Front National. And they are not very, I would say, very much changes in the ideas and the programs of the Front National.
Okay.